Thank you, Madam Speaker. Having heard from great leaders from both sides of the House talking about the historical background of our electoral system, those leaders who had witnessed the pre- and independent era and still in the House, now I understand the inherence of our political system. Having said that, Madam, I've listened to those experienced leaders from both sides of the House. I have understand that the configuration of the electorate here on mainland Mauritius is different from that of Rodrigues. And in this respect, my speech will be based on a broad principle of the electoral reform, that is representativeness, fairness, and stability to govern. Unless if there is any political party here which want to interfere in the internal political affairs of Rodrigues, and I will proudly call them as my opponent. But as I've said, I'm not going to interfere with the ideal of any political parties in Mauritius in regard to my speech on this bill. And one of the objects of this bill is to do away with the declaration of community. I just want to say that we don't have minority groups in Rodrigues. We have only one community, which is called Rodrigues community. And we don't mix up community with religions. And I can give you an example of that. In the election, 2010 general election, we chose Mr. Supamayan and my friend, Honorable Francisco François, to represent the constituency of Rodrigues in the general election of 2010. And today, Madam Speaker, we are debating on choosing an electoral system. It is very important because it is dealing with the issue of governing of a country. When it comes to electoral reform, in such a multicultural society as ours, we need a system which provides a representation of all communities, which promote proportionality in the distribution of seats in the parliament. It has to be crafted in such a manner that it assures long-term political health so as to prevent the disastrous consequences of democratic prospects. Therefore, changing an electoral system necessitates public awareness and widespread collective agreement. It is good to say here that our democratic system provides necessary framework for the electoral reform to be amended with an approval of broad consensus. The law itself is deeply rooted in our Constitution so as to ensure that the design of the electoral system is accepted as legitimate, which can be necessarily implemented. Electoral system is an institution in itself. So cross-party and public support is of utmost importance when it comes to any change made to it. All groupings which make our nation need to have an electoral system which, when they take part in the democratic process, must feel that the system is fair and give them the same chance as anyone else. In many neighboring countries, time and again, there are disappointment over public and candidates after election process. That when after they lose elections, they do always translate their disappointment on the electoral system. This should never be the case here in the Republic of Mauritius. Tonight, we are having the opportunity to debate on our electoral system for amendment. At the time of conclusion of the debate, every representative of this House needs to make sure, if ever there are amendments to be made, we have to make sure that the electoral system be fair and bring stability to govern. So this will allow any party to accept the verdict of the ballot box. We are one of the most stable countries in the region due to our democratic election process. There are so many things that we can learn from our neighboring countries, but the system need and differ from country to country. It is important for us to have an electoral system which is inclusive and provide representation across the board in our multicultural communities. I strongly believe, Madam Speaker, that our electoral system depends on a great extent of the structure of our society and our regional demographic differences. Therefore, Madam Speaker, over and above the criteria that have been and will be canvassed in this August House during the debate on the Constitution Amendment Bill, I will recommend, among others, some of the criteria. Maybe it won't be in the amendment, but which has a relation, direct relation with electoral system. Why the law to make sure that all constituencies and the plurality of the whole nation be presented fairly in Parliament? This will be possible by combining the system first past the post with a fair dose of proportional representative. But, Madam Speaker, when we talk about proportional representation, the calculation must be done in such a way that the wish of the electorate is respected. The proportional calculation should be in any way affect the result of the first past the post system. The winning party must always maintain its majority. Failure to do that will bring instability and difficulty to govern. A clear example of that are the results of the two consecutive Rodrigues regional elections of 2012 and 2017 respectively. In 2012, out of the 6 electoral regions of Rodrigues, OPR won at a majority of 4 electoral regions out of 6. The result was clear that the electorate has chosen OPR party to govern. However, when it comes to proportional calculation, the OPR party finds itself from a majority of 4, and then that slimmed down to a difference only 1 representative in Parliament, Madam Speaker. The same scenario happened in 2017 regional election. The OPR won an unprecedented victory of 5 electoral regions out of the 6, with a result of a majority of 8, and then after the calculation of proportional system representative, this slimmed down to only a majority of 3 members in Parliament. And you know, Madam Speaker, the leader of ML party, the opponent, our opponent in Rodrigues' party, had even taken advantage of the system and offered himself the luxury of being first on the proportional representative list, as he knew as a leader that he was going to lose election. This is not fair, madam. A true leader needs to get into the fight. It does not, as I've said, the result reflect the wish of the electorate. It is true that it is not easy to identify an optimal electoral system, but we can still identify a system which is fair, which will bring both accountability and representation. Madam Speaker, in Rodrigues, the minority leader is not accountable to any electorate region, as he was saved by the proportional representative system. There was only 2 members, and the only 2 members who are accountable for the region from the opposition side in Rodrigues. The rest do not represent anything. Madam Speaker, therefore, for this electoral reform, we are obliged to take valuable lessons from what happened in Rodrigues. Systems like that must not be introduced to the legislative election. Government need to have the trust of the population, and the population need to perceive that a government is legitimate, where the government has the necessary support to efficiently enact legislation and govern. This reform, Madam Speaker, need to enhance an inclusive electoral process. It has to be sustainable, a sustainable process, in order to maintain our society peaceful, as clearly stated in the 16th Sustainable Goal of the United Nations. Therefore, this amendment needs to further promote participatory and representative decision-making to allow the effectiveness of all institutions. It is good to note that this amendment is bonded to gender quota. This is a very good step forward, as it fits the ideology of all political parties in the House. Like it or not, we are all social democrats here. The system of right, center, left doesn't exist in Mauritius. We are all here supporting the principle of equality of opportunity and equality of result. But we have to go beyond that. This electoral reform must also enhance accessibility to disabled people. Madam Speaker, the right to vote is universal, and every vote counts during election. So many debates have taken place in this House on the rights of disabled and elderly. Those laws allow citizens to more and more seek their place in our society. Therefore, we have to more and more enhance strategies to set the standard of removing barriers for voters with disabilities by addressing all arising issues, including accessibility to polling place. Madam Speaker, the system needs also, in regard to disabled persons, encourage them to stand as candidates in election and to also take part in the running of election as well. I am glad that in this Constitution amendment, due consideration is given to the diversification of the electoral picture of the Republic of Mauritius. I am talking here, of course, about the devolved Rodrigues Regional Administration, in order not to be in conflict with the basic principle of its autonomous status. The new PR system what is being introduced in this amendment will not be applied in Rodrigues. I welcome that move, as this will prevent also political parties other than those parties which are based in Rodrigues and run by Rodrigues to interfere with the election process in Rodrigues. I welcome also, Madam, the anti-defection law. As representative of OPR Party in Parliament, OPR Party has always and fundamentally to not allow any member getting elected under the banner of another party to join our party in the same mandate. We totally disagree with that, same as we are a non-alliance party. Madam Speaker, in adaptation to the digital age, we need to take lesson from what had happened in the USA before considering electronic voting. But something which needs to be dealt with in the digital age is the use of fake news via social media by political parties. Most young voters use social media as a participatory process to have sufficient information on their parties. Social media is an important tool in the democratic election because social media are being used widely in the electoral digital campaign. Appropriate guidelines to all political parties are needed to prevent the occurrence of fake news, which may confuse voters and undermine faith in democracy. Madam Speaker, all that a country like the Republic of Mauritius needs in an electoral system is to make sure that elections are done free from intimidation, no challenge, fair and non-violent. For this to happen, we need to have a good electoral framework with meaningful electoral integrity, with a new approach when it comes to financing of political parties. To conclude, Madam Speaker, as I've said, we need to have an electoral system which is very representative and fair. And, Madam Speaker, I think we need to take due consideration as well from some definition like religions, community, ancestral origin, and culture. I think they have different definitions, and we need to get it right, and we need to correct it in our constitution so as we can separate religion from community, what is community itself, and what is ancestral origin. On this note, Madam Speaker, I thank you for your kind attention.